All right, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I've been doing these lives to the point where I'm starting to lose my voice, but I am so loving it. And of course, I have my tea here. I don't know if you're a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, but the Middle Eastern in me is a tea drinker. Although I'll tell you that I started getting into the habit of drinking coffee last year when I decided to film 52 videos in literally a month. That was crazy, and it's part of my course. Okay, wonderful. Today we're going to get a mixed bag, although the focus is going to be reviewing people's LinkedIn profiles. And I'm just, looking forward to people rolling in and getting started. But as usual, I like to start with a question so that I understand what you're all struggling with. By the way, just because you're not backstage, it doesn't mean that you can't ask questions. All you need to do is type your question in the chat and you will be able to contribute. All right. So make sure that you type in your questions if you have a question. My biggest question for you all is, what is the most frustrating thing when it comes to your LinkedIn profile? Is there something that you would like me to answer? When it comes to LinkedIn, I honestly feel that a lot of you underutilize it, especially job seekers. Now, there's really two buckets that I see people in. There's the bucket that literally does nothing with their LinkedIn profile, doesn't leverage LinkedIn profile in their job search, doesn't update their LinkedIn profile. And then there is that bucket that basically implements advice that is more suited for influencers or marketers or salespeople. And the approach has got to be different. Okay. You cannot brand yourself like a marketer or a salesperson if you're a job seeker. I actually had this conversation with one of my clients. He had a banner that literally made him come across like he's selling something. And when a recruiter sees that, they think that you're not looking for a job. So that actually does you more harm than good. And then two things that I'm going to focus on today when it comes to LinkedIn profiles. All of you, most of you, especially if you're a job seeker, you want to be found. So, how do we increase our chances of being found by recruiters? And then the second thing I'm also going to talk about as I review LinkedIn profiles is, how do we create stickiness? How do we get the recruiter to stay on our LinkedIn profile and keep reading? So, as I provide advice to people who want their LinkedIn profile reviewed, I'm going to talk about those two things. All right. So, I am seeing Becca backstage. And Becca, you wanted to get your LinkedIn profile reviewed. So I'm going to bring you on stage and we can go through it together. Welcome, welcome.
Awesome.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Good. I see your nice, Christmas tree set up and all those gifts in the background. You're
Yep,
just ready to celebrate.
almost.
Awesome. So tell me, my friend, what is your goal with LinkedIn?
My number one goal right now is to find a job. My second typical goal is networking and watching what's going on with people in my network and
Wonderful.
outside.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Okay, so what is your biggest frustration when it comes to your LinkedIn? Like, is there something that you have a specific question on? Are you getting the traction that you were hoping to get?
So I do get a fair amount of traction. I have used ChatGPT and some of the AI tools with LinkedIn to help me with my profile. And I know once I utilize those things, I got a lot more traction. I do not know the what the recruiters go off of to find me, but I can tell by when they message me if it's like, hey, here's some criteria, find me everyone who meets this criteria, you can tell those recruiters versus like they're just poking around and then like sending you a message. But honestly, I'm not exactly sure what's in my profile that they're seeing. Skills maybe? I don't know. Cuz I feel like that's a big push with LinkedIn. It's like when you like look at jobs they are saying you might be good for, they're like, "Oh, here's the skills that match. Here's the skills that don't match." Which That's what I assume it's using, but I really don't know.
Those are such great questions. And it's so important to, know what is working and what's not working so that we can double down on it, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. And my next question for you, you're saying that you're getting, inbound recruiters coming to
Yep.
you.
Mhm.
So where is, because that sounds like a good problem to have. Is it
Yeah.
that you're not getting the right opportunities that are handed over to you? Are you stuck there? Do you get ghosted right afterwards? What goes on? Where do things stall for you in the job search funnel?
So it's definitely a mix. I get people who are like, "Hey, apply for this job," and I'll apply, and then they'll be like, "And you're denied." And I'm like, "But you reached out to me and told
Yeah.
me to apply. You wouldn't even give me a screener interview." Okay, that seems weird. I do get some that never respond. I had someone from Vimeo reach out to me like 2 months ago. They reached back out to me like yesterday, and we're like, "Oh, this has been filled." And I was like, "Again, you reached out to me, okay." I mean, that's just, when you see on LinkedIn how many people are applying for jobs, at least in the industry I'm in, it's understandable. Like, you look at some, you're like, "Oh, 1,200 people applied for that job. Awesome." Um, so I kinda get stuck with, I think I need to do a better job of showing accomplishments and also talking about accomplishments. I get a lot of screener interviews. I do wish LinkedIn had something in there so they could see my salary requirements, because I think a lot of them, they hear my salary requirement and they don't wanna, I can hear it in their voice. They're like, "Oh, well, here's next steps if you make it."
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So it sounds like things, tend to drop off at the screening stage.
A lot of them, yes. Yep.
And do you feel that the roles that you've been getting screened for are within your level, or do you wish that they would be higher?
I would say 90% are within my level and within my specific, kind of expertise of what I've been doing. I've only had a couple where it was like, yeah, I have 8 years experience as a product manager, and I've had like one where they reached out and they're like, I told them my salary requirements. He's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Well, I've been doing it for 8 years, not two, based on your profile." I mean, sometimes they'll still interview for those because sometimes there's wiggle room or discussion. Maybe they have other job openings. Um, but and then some, it's just very clear that the recruiter, I think, I don't know if they are required to reach out to a certain number of people. Like, I had one reach out to me and they're like, "You need to be well versed in Salesforce." And I'm like, "I have nothing
Mm.
in my profile that tells me I'm an expert in Salesforce." So I don't know why you reach it out to me.
Okay, so that is great information that you shared with me. Do you mind if I share your profile so I
Mhm.
can give you feedback?
Yep,
Okay, wonderful.
please.
Let's do it. Okay, so I can definitely see that there are a number of things that you're doing well. So for everyone's benefit, what I really love about what Becca did here is she made it clear that she's a senior product manager. There isn't like I help people build products or any of that long-winded stuff. Because no, I'm being real,
Yeah.
because the thing is, you got to understand the psychology of a recruiter and what are the steps that a recruiter, what is their user journey as they source for candidates and search for you. They're not going to search on I help, build products, right? They're going to search on we need a product manager. Maybe they're going to even search on product analytics. Um, or we want a senior product manager, we want a director of product. So having the title and the heading is extremely important. So you did that right, because from an SEO perspective, that is the most important thing. It's kind of like, if we're searching on something in Google search engine, right? The pages that are going to appear at the top of the search results will have the keywords that we're searching on. And so the heading is the most SEO sensitive part of the profile. Wonderful. The second thing that you did effectively is that right off the bat, you let me know that you have B2C experience, B2B experience, and that you have more than 5 years of experience. And I recommend everyone does that literally within the first sentence. Tell me how many years of experience do you have? right? Because if I'm a recruiter, I'm given a criteria that I need to comply to, and I'm being told, look for someone with 5 years experience or look for someone with 6 years of experience. It's right there in front of them. Thank you for your question, Sumati, and I hope I said your name right, around the open to work. Honestly, I'm not, the reason I'm not focusing on it today and I'm not even mentioning it, listen, I'm very data driven. Okay. So if Becca's telling me that she's getting inbound, inquiries, and there are a lot of inbound inquiries, then I'm not going to necessarily nitpick on particular things, right? I mean, my advice tends to be more aligned with, turn off your open to work, make it only visible to recruiters. If I've done A/B testing, I tend to see people with the open to work turned off get more traction, but every person can be different. Becca, maybe because you have a strong, profile, the fact that you have the open to work sign is not impacting you, right? And
Yeah.
you don't have to turn it off if you don't want to. You can keep it on, you can keep it off. It doesn't matter to me. I will only advise people to change certain things if they're not getting traction. So to me, the fact that you're getting traction, I don't think that's the open to work is necessarily the problem. Okay. I actually don't think that your problem is not getting enough leads. I
Yeah,
think
I definitely have had
something,
plenty.
yeah, you have plenty.
Hmm.
Your problem is you're not converting those leads. You're not
Yep.
going farther than those probably screening calls. And so to me, and see, I'm not the kind of coach who will try to, be like, oh, I'm a LinkedIn expert. So even if you don't need it, I'm going to push that down your throat and teach you how to improve your LinkedIn. I'm all about, let's look at the end-to-end process and let us see where in the funnel you're blocked. And let's focus on fixing that part instead of fixing things that they're not going to move the needle for us. Because if we are getting the result we want, then why waste our time fixing certain things? But since you had the question of, I want to know why it's working, and so I'm telling you why.
Okay.
Why? Because you have a clear heading. Another why is because you're making it easy for the recruiter to know your years of experience, and that's important. The other thing that you've done very well is you have a number of keywords that they're interested in the about section. So for recruiters searching, I want a product manager with B2C experience, it's there. If I want a product manager with B2B experience, it's there. If they want, a product manager with API knowledge, it's there. You have your industries there. All of the good stuff is in there, and that is the reason you're getting traction. And so you all need to learn here. Take some notes.
I will say LinkedIn in the past maybe 3 or 4 months, their AI has gotten a lot better, and they're definitely doing things to help you improve their profile. Because I have
Mhm.
also noticed as well, when I had LinkedIn Premium for a long time, I got rid of it, I didn't feel like it was worth it at the time.
Unnecessary.
But when I signed up again, I noticed there was different, levels now, and there's one specifically for recruiters. So it seems to me they're trying to push, you to get your profile updated to make that LinkedIn Premium, product more valuable to the recruiters because they want them to sign up for it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I
I would
assume.
say that the premium subscription for job seekers is only good if you want to use the in-mail functionality and if you want to get access to the premium, I think it's called Career Group. Um, I would say, like, okay, so maybe the in-mail can come in handy if you are, sending a DM, let's say, to a recruiter and they haven't accepted your connection request. But the thing is, you could always personalize your connection request and just basically reach out that way. Or same thing with a hiring manager, right? I actually find sending a personalized connection request, I'm more likely personally if someone sends me a personalized connection request versus when I see an in-mail coming in, it freaks me out because I'm always like programmed to think the person is going to sell me on something,
Yeah.
right? And I always, advise people when you're doing reach outs is do it gradually. Try not to get right into the chase without starting a conversation and slowly building a relationship. And this is why I love the whole let's send a connection request versus in mail. So I would say, and of course, you also get access to LinkedIn Learning. So it's up
Yeah.
to you. Like, if you want any of those functionalities, then you can opt in for the um, premium. But unlike what people think, it's not going to boost you at the top of the search results. It's not going to make you more likely to get found. How you get found is by the keywords that you have in your LinkedIn, because it is searchable, and having that very straightforward, elevator pitch in your about section is going to make the recruiter want to stay in your profile and keep reading. The other thing that I'm seeing that you did well is you also have your titles, right? Senior product manager. I mean, it doesn't sound like you necessarily have transitioned into into product manager like recently. You've been there for a while. So there's nothing here to fix, right? Or to make, or there's no hurdle here in order for you to get found. In terms of your um let's say content in your job experience, maybe that is where there is room for improvement. And I'm not going to say there's room for improvement for that in terms of you being found or you being contacted. I actually think it is more for you, you know? Because when I teach people how to frame their experience on their resume, it really forces them to dial in and think about what are the different projects that I worked on? What are the different products that I worked on, right? What was the problem that I was solving in that product? What were the hurdles that I had to overcome? What was the impact that I created? And by going through that journey, inevitably, you create amazing copy that makes it super easy for a recruiter to maybe even start having, a perception of who you are right when you're going through the screening. And they may not ask you a ton of questions because the answer is right there, but most importantly, it actually gives you the confidence to navigate that conversation in the interview. So I definitely think that is something that you want to dial in a bit more. So, for
Okay.
example, in your most recent role, when I'm looking at it, I'm seeing a list of key responsibilities, almost the same way that a job posting is written, right? And what's missing for me is, what is the story behind the product that you worked on? You're a senior product manager. Show me that business sense. Tell me the story behind the product. Why was it significant? What were the hurdles that you had to, the challenges that you faced? You talk about customer engagement. I would, build a story around that. Maybe the goal of the product was to create customer engagement, right? And then separate, the story behind, the problem and the challenges you overcame from the actual impact. Because your impact is weaved in, it's actually hard to find. And, you know, everyone, if you're interested, DM me right after this live, and I will send you a training where I literally wrote my resume live, and you will see the structure that I'm talking about. So, this part here, leading to a 15% improvement in data efficiency, that really should be called out as a bullet, versus weaved in with everything else. It doesn't stand out, it's hard to find. Um, so I have read best practice for the number of skills listed for each job should be around 5. This seems really low. Jody, great question. I'm going to tell you all a little secret, okay? I'll tell you a little secret. Not everyone knows the secret. There are a lot of features on LinkedIn that are there not necessarily because they help with the recruiter finding you or they influence the recruiter's decision making. Some of these, features, honestly, like, they don't move the needle as much. I want you to think of it from the psychology of a recruiter. they're quickly scanning, your basically LinkedIn profile or resume. By the way, your LinkedIn profile shouldn't be written any differently than your resume. They, first of all, are very skeptical creatures. The way a recruiter screens a person is not about, is this person is the right fit. The way they think is, how do we disqualify the person? They find ways to disqualify you, to narrow down the number of people they would have a conversation with. And so if you don't meet the requirements that they're looking for, right, then they're just simply going to disqualify you. It's not about the number of skills you've listed. It's simply, are you a fit? And fit is not about tasks only. It's about the environment. It's about the type of product. It's about the industry. There's so many factors. And so my advice is to really dial in what that ideal job is. Honestly, that's the biggest, I will say, hurdle that people have to jump over. And once you are clear on what that is, you're going to start attracting similar roles. The thing is, it all comes down to likeness. And sometimes people get offended because I'm qualified, I have many years of experience. A lot of it has nothing to do with that. It's about the law of proximity. It's about the law of proximity. How close are you to what this organization is doing? Law of proximity. How close are you to what the organization is doing? Right? I'll give you an example. Had a client who reached out to me, right? She's a PhD. Her first question was, have you worked with someone who is a PhD? Not have you worked with people and helped them land jobs. Specifically, have you worked with someone who has a PhD? And so when you're looking for a doctor, you're going to ask them, have you worked with someone like me? Right? And that's exactly what happens with organizations. They really get that specific. And that's why it's becoming harder and harder, because there are so many options. And so rather than us trying to bend our experience, we got to really find a role that's a fit. It just makes it so much easier so that recruiters who see us as relatable reach out to us, and I'd be as authentic as possible. Okay, wonderful. Hope that this is helpful. Do you have any questions for me? Anything that I haven't answered?
No.
Wonderful. One last thing that I'm going to leave you with, Becca, is when it comes to recruiters, it's very important to build rapport with them. There are 3 things that you need to do in order to pass that screening call. You want to build rapport, meaning you want to get them to like you. So you see what I did when you first hopped on? I made you feel comfortable, did a little bit small talk around your Christmas tree and your gifts. You smiled, right? You got to break the ice. I know sometimes we get so serious because we're nervous. We want to close that deal. And sometimes we forget that we're talking to a human who is very biased and skeptical. And you got to bring that wall down to get them to open up to you.
Yeah.
There's a training that I also did called the Doctor Frame Technique. I did a talk at Scrum Alliance, and it talks a lot about that. So if anyone wants it, let me know and I will send it to you. The second element, other than building rapport, is you want to create engagement. Engagement is that you want this to be a conversation. You don't want this to be a one-way street. All right? So ask them questions as well to get them to converse with you. Questions about themselves. Hey, how long have you been in this company? Oh, how do you like working there? And also, what is the big driver behind hiring for this role? Create that dialogue. Get them talking to you as well versus you just answering questions. What it does, it really puts you on an even playing field versus them being in a higher power position. And just from a psychological perspective, when there is like that imbalance, the chances of you moving to the next step get slimmer. So the third thing that you want to do in the screening call is obviously you want to show them how you can create value, right? So really reading that job posting and understanding beyond the surface level, even going into the company website, seeing if you can talk to people who work there. What is the problem that they're trying to solve? Where is the organization at? Are they trying to scale the product? Are they trying to build it from scratch? And then telling stories, handpicking stories that are literally relatable to that situation. I would not, for example, share a story where you built something from scratch when they're looking for someone who would enhance their product, right? So just find stories that are relatable. Think about those three things: engagement, rapport, value.
Awesome.
Wonderful. All
Thank
right,
you.
my friend, thank you so much. Okay, and let us see who is next. All right, my friend, and I hope I'm not saying it wrong, Cho. Did I say this right? Did I say your name right?
Yes, you did, Nada.
Thank goodness. It's my pet peeve when I screw up names. All right, my friend. Tell
Yes.
us a little bit about, what got you to want your LinkedIn profile reviewed? What are you trying to achieve with your LinkedIn profile?
Two things wrapped around questions as well. So, well, I'll say my main objective is to definitely staying in my current space, project management space, and I just wanted to find out maybe what I'm not doing right. I've been getting quite a good number of interest from recruiters. And again, I think it's a similar issue with, I think it's Becca, I believe, where it's like sometimes they reach out to you, send you an email, then you respond back with a resume, then you don't get anything. Again, it's like the recruiter just goes quiet on you. Or you have this issue where it's like there's this opening, you apply and you send in your resume and stuff, and you don't go past the screening stage where you've tried as much as possible. I try to like customize sometimes my resume as much as possible to the role. And funny enough, I've had other situations where it's like I haven't customized my resume at all. I've just picked it, sent it in, and I got the screening. So it's a little bit,
It's like you don't know what works, right?
yes, sometimes you don't know what works.
I
Sometimes
hear you. I
you
hear
try
you.
all the keywords and you try and fit them in, nothing. And sometimes you just take a generic resume and apparently you get screened. Then, mm,
That's yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I
yes.
totally get it. I've been there myself and I've helped people get over that hurdle. So
Mhm.
I'm actually gonna I didn't answer that question that was brought up in terms of they reached out to me, why the heck would they ghost me, right?
Mhm.
When you're responding to those recruiters, are you responding to them through LinkedIn DM?
Yes, I am.
Don't do that.
Okay.
I'll tell you something. Recruiters don't live on their LinkedIn. They live on their email inbox. And so I want you to think about it this way. They're trying to close a deal, right?
Yeah.
You're not the only person they reached out to. They probably reached out to 20 other people.
Yes.
Okay? So
Mm.
whoever responds first, they're going to go with them. And so don't, respond through LinkedIn because by the time they see your message, it's going to be way too late. And so I would usually they'll leave their email address. I would send them an email. I would put something catchy in the subject. I would attach your resume there and, respond to them that way.
Okay. Sounds fair.
And leave your phone number too. Make sure that's on your resume, but also leave it in the message in the email respond, the one that you're creating for them.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the big thing. A lot of people don't know this, but recruiters do not monitor their LinkedIn inbox. What if they haven't left their email? Most of the time they will, and if they haven't, you can probably look them up. You can probably find that out. You can go into their LinkedIn profile, you can check their content info, you can Google their name, it'll probably pop up what agency they work for, and you can find, their email address that way. Most of the time, that's how they do it. If not, sure, like send it over the LinkedIn DM, but most of the time they'll leave their email address. So make sure that you send it by email. Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. So you're getting a lot of reach outs, I'm hearing, via LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm getting quite a few. Yes.
Okay. So are those quality, reach outs, or do you find that they're not, within the role that you want to basically apply to?
I would say maybe like 60%
Hmm.
are like quality. I'm gonna reach out, and the rest I'll say no, not really.
Okay. So want me to share and my screen and go through your LinkedIn?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Okay. So I'm gonna I think I am sharing the right thing, but I am not 100% sure. Let me see. No, that's not the right one. Remove, stop screen, present, share screen. There we go. That's the one. All right, wonderful. What is the role that you're targeting? Project management, program management? That's what we're going for?
Yes.
Okay. So the title here, Senior Program Analyst, Business and Analytics Program Analyst. The word project manager has got to be in your heading in some shape or form. I am guessing that are you still there, or did this end?
Yeah, I ended.
Okay. So I am guessing that they had a fancy title for your role, right? I've been, a victim of that myself. And so just help recruiters understand what it translates to.
Okay.
You can do, instead of senior program analyst, I would just put in a vertical line that says senior program manager or senior project manager, right? Just so that they understand what that even means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And have that in your heading. Same thing, replicate that in your heading, because from a keyword, from an SEO perspective, your chances of being found are not going to be as high because of that. I'm actually even surprised that you're even being found as much as you are. But imagine if you put that in, you will get more people reaching out to you for sure.
Okay.
The other thing I would do, if you really want to adopt the whole stealth mode thing, and I know Sumati was asking that, she mentioned that she's been flip-flopping between open to work and not open to work, and when she turned it off, she got traction. It is true. For a lot of people, you get traction when you turn it off. I mean, you might be in a position that you have a ton of experience that recruiters won't care, but it might even improve your situation more if you turn it off. And so if we're going with the whole, I haven't touched my LinkedIn profile in a while and keeping this open, then we want to be consistent, right? And I would actually advise you to put the banner for Ally, just, maybe this banner, or find something that has their logo or their branding, and I would just put it up here just for them to see that you were there. Okay?
Okay.
That's what I would advise you to do. It just, stands out more when recruiters see that, because I want you to almost think of your LinkedIn as a storefront. Remember, we're trying to create stickiness. You're being found right now, but I want them to stay on your profile. And I want to create that perception of you didn't just, when people leave, the first thing they do is they take off their banner or they change that they worked at the company. And it almost creates that impression of that person, had a bad experience or ran away. And remember how recruiters are always skeptical. Why did you leave? Did something bad happen? We want to minimize that. We want to minimize that judgment as much as possible. So I would just put a banner related to the last role that you've held. And then the about section. Okay, so this is where I'm going to say there's room for improvement.
Sure.
What Becca did literally within the first line, she told us how many years of experience she had and what she does. Because notice, I'm going to show you all here. A lot of you may not see this. Do you notice that the recruiter will only see the first 3 lines and then they're going to click on see more? Give
Yeah.
them a reason to click on see more. If all they read is you're a creative and confident professional and you encourage, cooperative environments and you're passionate on taking new challenges, that's very generic. That's not very focused on project management. I have a lot of questions in my mind as a recruiter who's busy trying to fill a role. I want to know real fast how many years of experience you have. Did you manage projects or not? How big were those projects? Those 3 questions are on my mind, and I want them answered in those 3 lines. So I would reframe this elevator pitch so that they see that right away. And they're like, oh my God, I want to learn more about him. Then if you want to talk about all this other stuff, sure, go ahead. But make the first 3 lines punchy.
Okay.
And then what else? I would prefer that a lot of what you talk about here is more about the types of projects that you worked on, the industries, maybe even a few of your top achievements. But all of this, okay, maybe you want to go work in an agile environment. Is that the reason you're talking about your Scrum Master certification? Like what is the point of you mentioning that you have a Scrum Master certification?
Good question.
I'm sorry, I'm just being
No,
real with you.
no, it's a great question, and that just tells you I'll be honest, I haven't. So I did this with a resume and LinkedIn profile writer a few years ago, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't paid much attention to that about portion of my profile. I've just them on like edits to the roles and what I've been achieving. That particular about section, I haven't really paid much attention to. So thanks for bringing it to my attention. I'll definitely work on it and bring it up to date and up to speed. Yeah.
Hey, look, your about section's like your bio, right?
Yeah.
It pretty much summarizes your overall experience. So we got to make it on point.
Mhm.
And that's what's going to make the recruiter want to read more. Here's the deal, right? Sometimes we rely on a resume writer or someone to write our copy. I call it copy because that's what it is. It's like compare yourself to a business and you have a website, right? I mean, I have a website. I'm a business, right? But
Yeah.
when I worked with a copywriter, I literally said, "Yo, I'm sitting right next to you because I want to know like what you're writing and this is about me, right?" I contributed to it. I argued with him. I said, "No, that's not, aligned with my values, etc." So I encourage you all to really learn the art. I know some of you feel like, oh, I hate resumes and writing about myself. But the thing is, it's such an important skill because what do you think you're going to be doing in the interview? You're going to be talking about yourself. On the resume, it's going to be on paper. It's going to be the condensed version. But in the interview, you're going to have to do it. And if what is on your LinkedIn and your profile is disconnected from what you believe you've accomplished, it's going to be very difficult, right? And
Yep.
so I invite you all to really try to hone that skill. Definitely connect with me, after the live. I will share with you a training that will help you start thinking about how to craft, this compelling messaging that really digs into what an organization is trying to solve so that you come across as the solution to their problem.
Yeah.
Versus just putting in a bunch of random things and praying that they're going to call you, right? That's not what you want. Okay, wonderful. So yeah, I think your about section needs to be a little bit more focused
Yeah.
on who you are as a project manager. I honestly want you to think to yourself and ask yourself this question. Like, when I wake up every day and show up to work, why do I want to manage projects? Like, why does it make me feel alive? Can you answer that question?
On my feet now? Not really.
Randomly. Why do you like being a project manager? Don't think about it. Just tell me.
Uh, I'll say for me, what I like being a project manager is based on two things. I love to get like the moving parts
Mm,
kind of like come together, figure it out, and build on that. So for me, that's how I kind of like view projects. It's like figuring out the different moving parts, assembling them, and building on them. That's for me.
that's beautiful, man. That's what you should talk about in your about section. You know, like, think about that value and keep asking yourself why do I to me, like, it's probably because you love bringing people together, right?
Yeah,
Diverse people, aligning them. So that should be literally within the first 3 sentences of your profile. And what can we bring that's concrete and adds value to an organization that solves their problem? Most of the time in organizations, right, leadership is disconnected from the teams. Projects don't get traction because there's no consensus. And if you even incorporate that in your stories and show that in the impact that you've created, now you're speaking to them. Now you're speaking to them because that's probably the pain that they're going through right now. And that's why they're trying to hire someone, right?
right.
So that's what I mean when I talk about storytelling. I want you all to really tell stories that show that show your highest value, that show what you believe in. Then you're going to be excited when you have a conversation and go to an interview, and you're not going to feel, that you have imposter syndrome. So even, what you have in the senior, I'm going to just call it program manager, responsible for leading project modernization efforts, and partnering with senior stakeholders. Good. So talk about how big this project was. Talk about why it was a big deal. AML. I worked, with AML, anti-money laundering, right? It's a
Right.
big deal. You're dealing with fraud. You're dealing with, you know, a part that's very important to the banks. And often you are working across multiple, lines of businesses. So be concrete and be specific. List how many lines of businesses, list who they are, list how you brought them together, list how you probably saved, the financial institution a lot of fines by putting these systems in place, right? Tell me the story. The story's missing. Once you have that, I'm telling you, people are going to be fighting for you.
That's good. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Just one other question. Now, I have this how will I put it? I have this challenge sometimes where because I have like a varied experience, I'll say since 2017. So I got more in the project space since 2017, and with all my projects I've been doing the IT side, the agile side of it, and there've been times where I've wanted to work, let's say, for example, as I'm a Scrum Master. I've
Hmm.
been a release train engineer on a project briefly. So there've been times when I've been like trying to like, okay, let's say move out of the project space and say and be a Scrum Master itself.
Hmm.
Now my challenge that I face, and I remember it's like I interviewed for this once, and like you mentioned that issue of the imposter syndrome. I have I know exactly what the Scrum Masters were doing as I was working with them, especially on building this platform, especially on the digital side. But it's like sometimes to be able to speak, I'll say, in the absolute detail or the confidence. It's like I can speak more to my project side, how I was managing them all together, but like the nitty gritty as to what the Scrum Masters were doing. So sometimes I have that conflict within me, even though again I understand the whole process. I have the certifications for it. I've worked again like a release. I'm a trained engineer, but quite briefly. So it's like I find myself in that conundrum where it's like sometimes I want to apply for maybe Scrum Master roles, but it's like I don't have like the absolute amount of confidence to be able to speak in detail about about working that space as compared to the projects I've worked on.
Thanks for sharing. That's such a common problem that people have, the imposter syndrome. And now I understand why you mentioned the word agile. It's like there's a part of you that's craving that. Makes sense to me. Okay, so I was an agile coach. I'll ask you a couple questions to help me understand, your level of exposure. So, did you work on agile projects? Did you work on projects where they were trying in some shape or form implement some type of wagile or agile?
Both.
Okay,
I've
good.
done the hybrid. I've done the hybrid, and I've done like a pure agile project.
All right, wonderful. So you've had that exposure,
Yes.
but I'm hearing that your title was project manager.
Yes, I was.
Did you work with did you work with Scrum Masters or Agile coaches?
Yes, I did. On one of my teams, I had like 3 Scrum Masters that worked with me. They had product owners as well for each of the Scrum teams, and also a product manager, and I even had I'm sorry, it's gonna come back. Yeah, definitely.
All right, my friend. It sounds to me like there is that element of, you wish you could get into that role, right? I'm sure that when you were seeing those Scrum Masters, you're like, I can do this. Like, there's nothing crazy about this, right? But then there's a part of you, they're like, yeah, but I don't have the title. I'm scared, I'll go to these interviews. What am I going to say? They're going to interrogate me. It's all about the framing. I literally helped a client who was a truck driver become an agile mentor at a top gaming company. Okay. He's never had the title before. Another client of mine, he has like a YouTube channel where he literally it's called Agile Games, with James. And I helped him also get into the role because he's always been curious and interested. That he ended up having a YouTube channel, but he was, trying to get in and wasn't able to until we worked together. So it's very possible. It's all about the way you position yourself and frame yourself.
Yeah.
Little secret I'm going to tell you all is that I literally pivoted into Scrum Master without ever having the title. Most of my experience, I was a consultant. I left consulting. I did a couple of contracts. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll be a Scrum Master. It wasn't hard. It was all in the way I positioned myself. You probably don't realize how much you've done the role without even knowing. I'm telling you. So definitely connect with me. We can chat a little bit and see, if we can get you there. Awesome.
Sounds good. Thanks, Nada.
You're very welcome. Great job, my friend. Okay, so we got 2 people left. Let us see. We got, who's the next person? Preti, you're next. I know you've been waiting.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. You?
Good. And you're in Australia, right?
I am.
My goodness. You're like in the future. What time is it? 11 a.m.?
11:45.
11:45. Wow.
Wednesday.
Oh my God.
We're still in Tuesday.
Oh my God. I'm like in the past.
Yes. we're well ahead.
This is like the Matrix. Tell us,
Yeah.
what's your question? I'd love to
So,
answer.
I've obviously I used to be in the UK and I've relocated to Australia. Back home with my LinkedIn profile, even now I'm still getting recruiters contacting me and like, are you up for a new role? Blah blah blah. Even though updated on the profile recently saying that I'm no
Mhm.
longer in the UK, they're still obviously reaching out. But here, I've not had a single recruiter reach out. And I don't know whether because obviously different countries do things slightly differently, and definitely in Australia, I know they're laid back compared to the UK and the US.
Mhm. Mhm.
Spoke to one of the recruiters. A lot of the stuff that you've mentioned about that about me section, the skills, I didn't have that. I relocated in the LinkedIn profile, so obviously it just had my last position, and it felt like I wasn't working or doing much. So instead of saying I'm not doing much, the recruiter was like, at least put that you've relocated, hence the gap in working. I don't know what else to do to get recruiters interested, and probably a bit like who's the previous guy you just spoke to, Joe, sorry if I
Cho.
said your name wrong, Joe. Similar to him, where I've done project manager roles, I've worked with agile um, frameworks, I've done the hybrid, I've done agile, I've worked with scrum masters, but I want to get into that. But people just see project manager and don't want to. Every time I've applied for the roles or whatever, just don't get no traction. I just get sorry, and
Okay.
half of them don't even reply.
I'm not even gonna start with the LinkedIn yet.
Yeah.
I'm interested in knowing,
Mhm.
are you clear on what your ideal job is?
I was, or I thought I was, and then obviously applying has kind of made me think I need to rethink
Okay,
what
let's
I've
forget
been.
about the applying because that can kill
Yeah.
anyone's, self-esteem. I know
Okay.
when I was God, this is like I don't know if you guys saw the post that I did. It was literally like December 2019. I barely had money on my credit card. My
Yeah.
microwave decided to break on me and I'm like, "Oh my God." And I remember talking to someone who's supposed to be a resume writer. Back then, I didn't know much about anything. I found the person on Fiverr. I was like so desperate. I'm like, I swear I don't want to pay someone to write my resume. But then
Yeah.
when I wasn't getting traction, I was like, okay, I need to do this because I'm screwed. So literally took whatever left I have and paid the person. Did not write my resume, by the way. But one thing that I learned, and this is why I tell people sometimes you invest money and you're scared that you're not going to get the result, but it's never a waste because you always learn something from the
Yeah.
person. And one thing I remember him saying was that, hello, you've been in blue chip organizations. You can get a job. You can get a job. I think it's your confidence, right? And I think that you not getting traction in your job search is starting to impact your confidence. And once I realized that, I wrote an article on LinkedIn. Boom, I got hired. So what I want to say to you is forget about the job search before you got jaded. Well, nothing is standing in your way. What would you want to do?
I want to do Scrum Master. I like getting into the details. I like getting my hands dirty. All the
Mm,
people that say they can't do it, I want to turn around and say, why can't you do it? You need to give me a valid reason other than you just don't have time, because that doesn't wash with me. I like working with the really difficult people because I want to, everyone in companies have said, oh, yeah, this person's difficult. You won't be able to work. You're not going to get them to do stuff. And like you were saying earlier, it's building that rapport. But sometimes you don't have that time to build the rapport because the business just wants the job done already
mhm.
instead of waiting. Where I have been up against most of those challenges, and I know a lot of people don't like that, but that's my main thing that I like is working with the people, that people interaction with my understanding of project management isn't just the delivery, it's more people management than the actual work itself. Because if you've got that nailed and you've got a good team, you've just got to keep them motivated and stuff, you know, and the rest
Absolutely.
will happen. But obviously, you get the difficult stakeholders, the organization wants something different timelines. It's just kind of getting all of that and everyone on the same page, which I find more like, yeah, okay, cool, I'm going to do this.
All right.
Right.
I'm gonna mute you because I think it's echoing. Okay, everyone hear me? Thumbs up. Yes. Can you hear me, Pretty? Okay, good. So here's what I think. Okay. First of all, you know, I would definitely would love to go through a more in-depth assessment to help you if I were to work with anyone, even if they say I'm 100% sure that's what I want to do. I love doing my due diligence and getting people to do my career archetype quiz just to validate that assumption. But overall, I agree. In my career archetype quiz, there is a very specific question where I ask, where do you want to spend most of your time? Do you want to spend your time with customers? Do you want to spend your time, you know, basically building products that help customers? Do you want to spend most of your time with the team, and do you care more about the process? And it sounds to me team and process. Most people who fit in that bucket tend to go into the project management Scrum Master lane. Now, for all of you agile enthusiasts, don't come at me and get mad at me for comparing the two and blah, blah, blah. Okay, just take a chill pill. I was an agile coach too. I'm not saying, you know, the roles are exactly the same, but I am also a firm believer that organizations have a very poor classification of the roles, right? To me, stop worrying about the title, care more about the buckets that, you know, those functions fit in. Now, I will quickly tell you why you're not getting traction on LinkedIn. It's not actually that surprising to me. And I'm going to be extremely honest with you. Ready? Okay. So first things first, my dear, you have 402 connections. Any connections that are below 501, anyone who has connections below 501 is not going to get as much traction. Maybe you are getting traction before. It's possible that you were in a few recruiter databases. Maybe you've built relationships with people. Maybe you commented on someone's post. I don't know why you were getting traction before. But the main thing for me, and also it's possible that because you weren't as active on LinkedIn, that just compounded and made things tougher for you. So my big thing for you is you got to start adding more connections, get yourself to 501, connect with people who are in Australia, okay? So that you have more people within your feed who are basically, what do you call it, in your same geographical location. So that's number one. That's the big thing that I want you to do. The second thing that I want you to do, we're talking about stickiness, right? No banner, photo, you're not smiling. Those are big influencers in terms of approachability. When a recruiter is searching on someone, and I'm going to quickly do a demonstration, project manager, right? I'm not using the recruiter portal, but it's not that different. Okay? This is pretty much what they see. Small, you know, photos, titles. Okay?
Yeah.
They're just going to click on a random person. What's going to make them want to click on the person? First of all, the photo's got to be there. The person has to be smiling. The title is there. So photo influences their decision to click on you. If you're not smiling, if it doesn't look like a professional photo, if it looks like more like a selfie or a cutout from another photo, it just doesn't create that executive presence. So we got to take a new photo. That's your homework. Go outside, have, you know, someone take your photo. Make sure you're having a good time. Big smile. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to say is that I would, yes, you need to put something, you need to show that you've been up to something, right? This is going to be a huge deterrent for recruiters. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So you have a couple options. 10 months is not it's not a terribly long time, especially with the layoffs that are going on. You have two options. Either make it look like you haven't touched your resume or your LinkedIn profile since you moved, from England. Just don't put an end date here and, just keep it that way. Or start volunteering, start doing pro bono work, start doing some upskilling and talk about that. Have a side project. It doesn't matter what it is, but I recommend you show that you've been up to something versus the career break. That's not helpful. I don't know why LinkedIn has that feature. This is what I'm talking about, right, everyone? They have features that are not necessarily helpful for job seekers. So those are my two big things for you. I think it's going to be a big game changer. Once you make those changes, you will get more traction.
Okay.
But the main thing, here for you, my friend, is you got to own it. If you want to be a Scrum Master, you got to brand yourself that way. You got to tell stories about how you were acting as a Scrum Master. And that's not apparent either.
Okay.
So maybe a quick win for you, just to reduce the pressure, is to stay with Agile Project Manager as a stepping stone. And then once we build the confidence, once we get recruiters reaching out to us, then we can take the next lily pad, which is Scrum Master. But connect with me offline and we can talk a bit more. But really good stuff. Okay, we got one more person, and I apologize for going a little bit over time. And by the way, for those of you who want to be podcast guests, reach out to me via DM. And Andy, thank you for pitching in about Scrum immersion programs. You just need to, honestly, a lot of times I've helped clients without needing to go into additional programs. I think the biggest problem that people have is not that they're not qualified. It's that they have imposter syndrome and they don't know how to share, the invisible work that they've done. Because I'm pretty sure, Preti, Agile. You've probably been on projects that had Agile, right?
Yep.
There you go. So you don't need to be in a Scrum immersion program. If you weren't in tech, if you know nothing about Agile, then maybe I'll say that. But you have what it takes. You're just not owning it. And I've seen that in a lot of people. Wonderful. Okay. You're next. Without even warning you.
Hi, Nada. How are you?
Hi. And you go by Hina?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So share with us. Tell me what would you like me to answer?
So I honestly, right now, I am not looking for a LinkedIn lookup for sure. It's just I'm in a phase where I'm trying to move from being a software developer to learning more about product and business. So if we are in the topic of LinkedIn, then the question will be,
Absolutely.
how do I?
It doesn't have to be LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay.
Is this your bleeding neck
Yes.
problem?
Yeah.
Okay. I know I have weird analogies. You're trying to pivot into product. Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes. So I'm trying to build my profile there, and of course, I do have imposter syndrome because so my goal is to start interviewing in probably next 6 months. First prepare for that role, if needed, do some certifications and do a side project and then pivot. So that's the plan. And so what help I need is definitely I've read the book from you that you shared, just
Oh,
the
that's
few
awesome.
chapters.
Yeah.
So I really liked the area of storytelling. I definitely want to learn more, And so yeah, just hear from you about how can I be a better communicator, because I'm a developer. I just do my job in silos all the time. So probably the current problem that I face in my firm is when I try to say that, okay, I want to transition, nobody, I cannot get traction one, and they're like, okay, you are a developer, do you really know about product, do you really know about business?
Okay, so
So
I'll
these
pause you
questions.
because I have a lot of good stuff that I want to share with you.
Mhm.
I've helped several clients pivot from developer to product manager. One of my good clients, he actually he went from developer to senior technical product manager at Amazon. I have another client who was a developer pretty much all of his life and ended up being a team lead, which I see that you were at some point. And he pivoted from team lead to product owner at an organization, at a fitness company. So here's the deal. I'm sure as a developer, you were part of the conversations when it comes to what features are going to be included in the product.
Yes.
I am sure that you influenced that. And I am sure that you were part of the conversations around, what features are we going to prioritize? Are these feasible? I'm sure that you asked questions in terms of requirements and what the client needed. You got to tell us the whole big picture. The problem is that a lot of us who are trying to pivot, we stick to our little silo of what we did. But when you start talking about how you contributed pieces of the puzzle, now it becomes easier for you to transition. Because despite how organizations have, almost put people in a position where these silo roles, you have these peg holes, and that's where everyone fits in. That's not how it actually works in real life. There is no way that I've never met any person in an organization who's a high achiever who just stuck to what the job description says. I've seen developers, I've worked with developers side by side who would sit down and ask the client the hard questions. And so lean into that persona more. Think about what are the responsibilities of a product manager? How did I shape the product? How did I impact the product? How did I make the customer happy? Talk about those things and tell the story around it versus just talking about I coded and I, fix these bugs, and that kind of stuff, right?
Right. Okay. So even the LinkedIn needs to just showcase that, is it? If I'm trying to
I
pivot as well.
I want you all to move away from the idea of resume and LinkedIn. I
Okay.
want you to think, this is my story. These are my experiences. How do I frame them? This is my brand, right? LinkedIn is a tool. Resume is a tool. You having a conversation is a way to convey that. But the story that you tell yourself, that needs to be dialed in, right? I really want you to make a list of all the different products that you worked on, even if you were doing infrastructure work, right? But you weren't just doing infrastructure work. I'm seeing also front end development, right? So you were touching the part that the customer was touching or facing.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about what business problem it solved for the customer. Talk about the types of customers, right? Tell me the whole story about the product and not just the functionality and the back end behind it. That will help the recruiter see that you have that business sense.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. The next question is definitely around like, if today I work as a developer, so obviously communication and those areas are really will definitely take a back step in my area. So how do I improve that game within the current firm, or if you can suggest anything outside?
Put yourself in situations that challenge you and are out of your comfort zone and almost take you out of that introverted mode and put you in a position where you're having conversations with people. So you're doing this right now. by being on this podcast.
Yes.
And this is why a lot of my programs are community based, because I emphasize the aspect of we all need to be more vulnerable and communicate with each other and openly talk about problems that we're facing. When we do that, we actually become better collaborators. We become better persuaders versus always being in our little cave and cooking up an experiment, right?
Mhm.
And coding and building. It's amazing that you're a builder. It's amazing that you're a creator, but you are now getting a point in your career where you need to create more influence and convince people. And so put yourself in situations, and I'm not being super tactical because I think, if I help you understand the why, you'll figure it out, right? Whether it's meetups, whether it is, this opportunity, you jumped on it, you raised your hand, you got on the podcast. But those are just a few things that you want to do. And of course, if you want to chat with me later on, behind the scenes about the program and how my community works, I would be happy to have a conversation with you. But definitely work on that. A lot of people talk about certifications. A lot of people talk about training. We all spend a lot of time investing on our hard skills, but we're not spending enough time working on our communication skills. That's equally important, if arguably not more important, because what's going to take someone from, let's say, even if we stick within the engineering track, what's the difference between an engineering individual contributor to team lead to a director is the way you communicate, right? And
100%.
that is what I teach people in my storytelling boot camp. So definitely connect with me and I can tell you more about it. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
would
goodness.
definitely I want to read more of your book, so please share when you have it
Yeah.
ready.
The story behind my book is that my editor almost slapped me on my hand for wanting to share it prematurely. And then what happened was, it's not ready to be pushed out. So now I'm going back to the drawing board and rewriting some of the chapters. And that's why it's delayed. It's like a positive thing because now you're all holding me accountable. Shit.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then I got you all excited that it's done. But yeah, you will definitely hear more about my book, and you're definitely on the list. Everyone who showed interest, you're all my mailing list once the book comes out. Okay,
Yeah,
wonderful.
great.
Thank you so much, Hina.
Thanks, madam. Yeah.
All right. Okay, everyone. Super excited to have you all here. This is becoming such a success. It started with an experiment of seeing who's interested in hopping on this podcast, but I honestly feel like it's creating a lot of value for everyone. So share this, like this, so that more people see it. And if there's more demand, I'm going to keep doing this. All right. Hope you have a wonderful night, everyone. Thank you so much for participating. Thanks for your amazing questions. Anthony, we are going to get you as the next guest. So DM me if you're interested so I can answer your question more in depth. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful night. See you soon.